We have two more sessions in part of the future. So this is the kind of future that the Teachers Academy and University of Helsinki sees itself fulfilling, and the kind of the direction that the Academy wants to go toward. But now we're going to change the approach or the viewpoint and go to Norway. And we're going to ask our colleague, Arnt from the University of Oslo, to talk about the role of the Teachers Academies in the future. If you think of that title is a mouthful, it is, and it's my fault. So it's not Arnt's fault, but the idea is to see what we could do to be relevant and vibrant in the future as leaders in the pedagogical change. Arnt Maasø is a professor of media and communications at the University of Oslo, and he is the outgoing chair of the Teachers Academy at the University of Oslo. Please, welcome. Here's the clicker.
So, thank you so much for inviting me. Eric has already said that we're pressed for time, so I put my timer at 16 minutes and 50 seconds left. So, congratulations. First of all, I'd say that my goal of coming here is already fulfilled. It's been a very inspiring talks preceding me, because we have more to learn from you than you from us. But I'm asked to talk about the future, so maybe we'll have something to say about that as well. But first, when I was invited to come, I thought, didn't any of the Swedes want to come? And I was reminded by the Bible, what do you call it, the parable of the wedding feast in the Gospel Matthew, where the king invited to his son's celebration and no one would come, so he slaughtered them all. And then he invited everyone off the street, both the bad and the good, as it says. I looked it up, and but one of them was dressed not very nicely, so he had them beat up. So I put on my suit and shined my shoes, and I was glad that I did that, because I heard, that was the first thing that was addressed today, the dress code. But anyway, as we've already heard, the title is long. It's not mine, so I asked ChatGPT for some suggestions. I thought they were more snappy in a way, but in any case, what I'll talk about, no matter the title, is basically two things: challenges and possibilities for the future. And I'll start a little bit with context before I go into the challenges and possibilities, because I want to say a little bit about the Teachers Academy in Oslo in order for you to understand where I come from and my perspective. So it's not a coincidence that I thought, why didn't I ask the Swedes? Because we're very young. I mean, the teacher merit scheme was put in place in 2020. And these guys are the first 7 that were appointed or given that status as teachers of merit. But actually, the university, first of all, didn't have, like here in Helsinki, this was not a top-down thing from the leadership of the university. This was an external mandate that all higher education institutions should have some scheme of teachers of merit in order to raise the status. So this was pushed up on the university, and it turned out that, well, of course, Oslo is the oldest university, no longer the largest, but we're similar in many ways to Finland, but I think you're a bit more forward-leading when it comes to teaching, which is not a surprise, because all the world is kind of thinking, look to Finland when we're talking about teaching. And this, I think, also is the case for teaching at the university level. But when we were all appointed teachers of merit, the university had no thought about what should we do, really. They had no idea or any suggestion of having a pedagogic academy or a teachers academy. So basically the first thing I did was, because I like working together with people, and I think collaboration is the main strength. So I put up a Microsoft Teams team the day after we were all awarded. I said, shouldn't we start cooperating and sharing? And out of that grew the idea of putting up a Teachers Academy. So we actually did this by our own kind of initiative, and we used maybe half a year to kind of formalize it, and then everyone just pointed at me and, why don't you do it? And okay, so I was the chair for the first couple of years, and then we kind of have formalized it a little bit more. So now we have set in place an ingoing chair, a chair, and an outgoing chair. So in January, I went into the role of an outgoing chair, what we hoped that we would grow quickly, but the second year of the Teachers of Merit, only 6 were awarded, and then last year only 2. So we're only 15 people. We're very small. And then adding to that, when we all applied for the Teacher of Merit positions, this was in March 2020, so basically the same time as everything locked down. So our whole kind of history is kind of started in Corona. And as you all know, cooperation and meeting people was extremely difficult at that time. But we managed to do that on Teams and etc. My feeling is that we're not only those kind of people, but we were all thrown into kind of when we got the status of Teachers of Merit, we were all thrown out into kind of a crisis operation. We were kind of like the go-to people for just fixing the pandemic. So this is actually much more like I view the Teachers Academy in Oslo, kind of Ghostbusters. The only difference, which is a major one, is was it Mia that said, I wanted to apply for the Teachers Academy because I wanted to join a family? Or was that Mia? And that was a really touching statement and a very beautiful statement, and which is not, I think, the case, because we're not that family, tight-knit kind of Ghostbuster team. We're basically, each of us in our own faculty trying to Ghostbust the faculty in a sense. But we try to work together as well. We're 8 faculties at the university, and 7 of the faculties have representatives from in the Teachers Academy or the Teachers of Merit. The one major difference is that, as I heard today for the first time, Hype is not allowed to be part of this, whereas in Oslo, the equivalent to Hype, the pedagogic faculty, are allowed to do that. And of course, they have a kind of head start, because they're used to doing research on teaching methods, etc. So out of the 15, 4 of them are from the pedagogic faculty, which is positive and has other implications as well. Now, what we were all thrown into was trying to kind of set up teaching, because things were not in place for meeting that challenge. And so, a little bit my personal story. I come from the Faculty of Humanities, that were probably maybe least prepared for to do this. And so what I did, or what I was asked to do by the faculty board, is try to set up a kind of lab, teaching lab, which we called HF Studio, the Humanities Studio, and where we kind of try to support the 250, 300 teachers at the faculty and help them with producing digital material, methods, etc., etc. And now that's a kind of strong and up and running unit. And I'm not the only one doing this. This happened also at other faculties. So about half of the 7 of us, or 4 out of 7, we all kind of became part of this kind of crisis teaching, sharing, collaborating learning methods. And also, what happens is that a lot of my colleagues the first year were kind of already people that had, as we heard from the evaluation here, had some kind of prior prize or had an important role in teaching. So several of them were already leading centers of excellence in teaching. Today, actually, a new center of excellence in teaching was rewarded to one of our members. And that was the first one for interdisciplinary teaching, which heartened me a lot. So, so there are now 4 centers of excellence and then a couple of other types of kind of more labs going into teaching. Now, so that's a little bit about our background, and I can come more back to that if we have time during the panel discussion. But a major challenge for us as a teaching academy is that we've been so busy with kind of working in our local faculties and helping foster collaboration there, that we have had relatively, compared to that, little time to work interdisciplinary within the Teachers Academy, which is something I miss and the other people miss, but which is certainly one of our goals going on to the future. Now, challenges, I think we all are kind of working in macro trends and frames that both influence the way our Teachers Academies were set up originally, but also influence how we work forward. So the first is that as the Teachers Academy, it was put in place by external forces. The government said you all have to raise the quality. And just a couple of weeks ago, we got a new white paper, which is long awaited, and that kind of signals a lot of changes in Norway. It's about the future of higher education, future needs and competences in Norway and the workforce. And they deal with kind of macro trends and also with structural changes, both with student financing and how the whole university sector is going to be financed. So these are important macro kind of and structural forces or affordances that kind of influence how we face the future. Now, it's this particular white paper might not be, it might be other trends and other forces that you meet, but I think some might be overlapping. For instance, as in Denmark before, both the humanities and social sciences are kind of singled out as we need to show that we're relevant and contribute to the tomorrow's future. And there are 2 main challenges, the twin digital green transition and also kind of labor shortages that are singled out. We, in Norway, lack health workers, IT people, craft workers, high school teachers. So we're all made aware that you need to address this. And we also need more technical skills, and we need kind of the more of the 21st century skills that we've been reading about for many years and working on, some of us, namely collaboration, critical thinking, problem solving, the soft skills that we need to face the future, not only the hard skills. And so these are broad and big changes and forces that are kind of deal with the frames that we operate in. The second big challenge is the kids are not okay. I was intrigued hearing that the evaluation here where you said that, well, actually more say that they don't get that much inspiration, or They don't have those many talks with students anymore. And I wonder if that's also due to these broad changes when it comes to the students that we meet. We know from international studies and trends that, at least in the UK and the US, from the 90s onwards, kids were a lot less together, a lot more indoors, much more online. Social media developed partly because they needed places to meet online because they couldn't meet outside. We know that there is more and more research on the mental health and the possible problems of social media and the online world, which influences aspects many believe, I think, on, for instance, perseverance, grit, sisu perhaps. We certainly know that book reading among youths is going down in Norway, not among adults, but among youths, and especially young boys, 16 to 24, it's plummeting. And last year is the first time I had to buy this book, Teaching Unprepared Students, because there has been a big discussion starting in January in Norway about the challenge more and more university teachers feel that they face with students that are unprepared reading long, demanding texts, for instance. And these are some of the clippings from this debate. And I'm not saying that kids are everything was better before and kids today are useless, etc. But it is a new challenge for us as teachers, I think, because when I studied, first of all, we were about a third of the population of students, right? So in my field, it's been a tremendous increase just since I graduated, actually, 300% growth in teaching, and at that time when we were students, first of all, a lot came from backgrounds where studying was usual and they knew how to study, or they had expectations about it, or if they didn't, you were expected to float or sink. You weren't kind of just expected to, okay, so you don't know how to read an academic text, let me help you. But now today, there are so many, I think we just have to address this and take it serious in a different way. To work against people dropping out, etc. So we need to kind of develop new tools to get students on board, I think. So also when it comes to the future, this white paper I mentioned also signals radical changes in adult education. We need to bring, reskilling, upskilling are terms that we are facing, and they are also addressing the structure in new ways structurally. So we need to kind of face them in a different way. Now the third challenge is herding cats. Coming out of the pandemic, it's a challenge to kind of motivate teachers to do anything differently. Just that they want to go back, a lot of them, to the way things were before the pandemic. And it's a kind of pandemic fatigue, I think. So, inspiring people, getting people to work together and learning new skills is not easy. And although teaching has a higher status now than 10 or 20 years ago, it still is a bit challenging bringing people on board in a sense. Now, I have a couple of more minutes to talk about solutions and directions. Now, I went back to some of the original literature from Practices of Scholarship. And actually, this was echoed in one of the slides you showed. Here it says, excellent teaching is marked by the same habits of mind that characterizes other types of scholarly work. And how do academics work best together? Well, in research groups with clear research questions, something they're curious about, something they want to, research gap they want to fill, etc. And I think we need to work that way. And I understand that that's the way you are thinking and working on. And I think that for the future. Now, as for the challenges, I don't think we should do like the Ivy League universities in the States that, when ChatGPT came, they just said, well, then we'll just stop using the test scores in order to accept students. I think that's going backwards into the future, just bringing, okay, we'll just fix it with pen and paper. So we kind of need ways to do this in another way. And here is an example of things we have done locally at my university, not because of the ChatGPT, but because we, as a humanities faculty, need to teach students and have them learn how to use other skills than just writing an essay. We need to teach them how to work together. We need to teach them how to work on real-world problems like sustainability. A lot of them are going to do podcasts or make video essays instead of writing a long article. And we also have like academic interviews where they prepare things in mind maps, etc. But then they get kind of a more real-world-like way of addressing this. So I think we need to kind of change and be a little bit more forward-leading in working together and teaching our students to work together. Now, this is a website of the lab that I was talking about, and one of the more heartening things is the list of other learning centers that you see there. And also, one of the teams that I am a member of, which is called Teaching Development. And it's broader than the Teaching Academy, Teachers Academy. But now we see that, deans of studies or other people are joining that team, and they're sharing across the university. And this is the first time I've seen in my 25 roughly years at the university, this happening across faculties. It's much more been a tradition of silos, and we've had really no arenas to meet and share and exchange. And the 15 of us, we're not big enough to do that. We need critical mass to do that. And you have a critical mass, we don't. But now we see that this thought about sharing, developing across the university is starting to happen. So too long didn't read. There are challenges, but things are never so bad that it can't be made worse with accordions. Thank you.
Thank you.